So here I'm going to set a variable for header. I'm going to put null because we need to have some default values. So here, data from CSV. So what data we receive, it can be an empty array for now. So because we are not reading CSV currently. Then we say here, let's read the CSV, so we get records. And to read the CSV, I'm going to use a PHP function array underscore map. And here the function is string get CSV. And the second parameter going to be file. And there we need to pass the path and the name of the file, so that we are storing here file with path. So we can pass right here. Alright, now let's see what we get out of it. So we just gonna copy this and the item here. And if I refresh, resend, we get 1001 records. Each record has some data in it. So the first is the title. So here the first array element is the header. So if you see here, we have the name, first name, last name, and the second is the original name and detail of the employee. So what we need to do, we need to extract that header and make it in a way so we have like first name, then name, last name, then last name, something like that. Let me show you what I mean. So we go back here and we need to first of all remove this, and I'm gonna for each rearranging the data, and I'm gonna say for each, I'm gonna pass $records as $record, and then here what we want to do, well, as by default we are saying header is null, so we can check here. So we can say if not null, alright, it's not header, we can say like this. Then we want to do $header equals $record, and then here else we want to put in $data from CSV, it's an array, and we want to put that record here. First time this loop runs, it's going to say, okay, the header has null value, it's going to put value in it. Then header is not null, it's going to go in else every time I'm going to put in here. So we have the first array element as header, so it's going to put in $header. So here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to dd, and we can see what is happening. So we can say $header and also CSV data. So paste here. Now you can see I'm doing it outside the loop, so we should get the data. Now here you can see the first element was header values. So we have first name, last name, and then we have the data of that particular person. So initial first array element is just the titles for each field, and that's the header. So if I refresh now, resend, now if you see, this is the header. So all the titles are separated. Now the array is of exact 1000. It's not of 1001 because we separated the header. And here we have the each individual person's data. So what we can do now, we can combine this data. So what we can do, and also this is this 1000 records that we will be processing. So I want to do it at every single time when we process 300 records each time. You can set any number of records, but to make less pressure on your code, we can do something like this. We can use chunking here. So let's see how we can use it. So simply I'm gonna remove this. I'm gonna say here breaking data. For example, 1,000, or let's say 10K to 1K each, or 300 each, something like that, if you get the point. So here basically what we need to do, I'm going to define array chunk. It's a method from PHP, and what it does, it takes the array, so we want to pass this array, and then it takes how many values you want in each array. So I want to pass 300 for now, and I want to update the exact array. So here I'm just going to put it in this array. So now if I go here and DD, you will see we won't have the 1,000 records. We will have 300, 300, 300, and 100. So it broke that in 4. So now it will be easy for PHP to process. PHP will process here first 300, then another 300, then another 300. So this process will be small as compared to working on 1,000 records straight away. So here, what we can do now, I'm going to use for each loop. So I say for each, and I'm going to pass this variable as, and also we need to use the index here. So as index as in, I'm going to call it $data CSV. Now inside it, what we can do, we can see each employee. So if you want to looping through each employee data. So here for each, and here as a $data CSV as $data. All right, and here what we want to do, I want to create a brand new array here. So I'm going to say here $employee data. I'm going to put the index here, $index, and then I want to have the array underscore combine. Let me show you in a moment how this all going to work. So it's going to be array combine, and here we're going to combine the header data and the $data. All right. So okay, let's see, if we go here and inside it we see that each employee's data is here, the name, first name, last name, email, and if you remember we had the header that tells us which is first name, which is last, but we don't have it here. We need to combine it here. So for example, here is the email. Instead of 6 it should say email, so that we know, okay, this is the email. So we can do that using array combine. So we need to loop through each employee because we need to combine each employee's data. So that's why we are doing that. I loop through each 300 employees. So here we are looping through 1,000 or 300. In our case we defined 300 employees. Each. Alright, so when we are looping through this, then we are going here, and then once we are here we are looping through each employee, and then we are putting that data here. So if I get this and DD here, this time we should have the header values in front of here. So let's see, refresh, resend, we get this, and if I go to each value, Now you will see that we have the first name and then the name, email, then the email, and this is happening for each employee. Any record you go inside, this is joining it, because array combining is getting the header and attaching it to the data of each employee, and then it is putting inside this employer array and employee data array, and then we DDing it. So that's how it is working. Now comes the interesting part. Now we will be working on storing this data. In there we will be using queues. So here, if you see, I separated this in 4 parts. So 1,000 records coming, it is going to give us this way: 300, 300, 300, and 100. If you pass 10,000 records, it's going to be 300, 300, 300 so many times, and then it is going to be working each time using 300 records. So it's not going to be a lot of pressure for PHP. Now we're going to use queues so that we can use our application and everything works behind. So if I go to the documentation of Laravel here, and here there are a few things we need to create. Table. So we have here PHP artisan queue table, and we need to run this command. We need to run PHP migrate. We need to change the database connection to database, queue connection to database. So let's do this. So we go to our app in text editor. I go to env. There we need to look for queue connection. It says sync here. I'm just going to paste database because we are going to create the database connection here. So we will be having a database table for our queues. Now let's run this command. So here I'm gonna go into new tab, and here we're gonna run this command. So it's gonna create a migration file for us. Now once we have the migration file, we can migrate. So PHP adds migrate, so it creates the table. So we just got it. Let's go to the database. There we have Laravel app. Now we have here failed jobs. So any job, if failed, it's going to have the detail here. Other than that, we have jobs. So this jobs is created by the command we ran. So I'm calling it queue, and here we say queue table, but it adds the jobs table. All right. So all the jobs going to be here. And after this, what else we need? Migration. Yeah, rest all is good so far. So what we can do now, we can work with queues. So for that, here in the documentation it says if you want to do Redis, we are not doing that for now. We're just going to use the database queues. And if you scroll a little more, you will see the create job. So we have another command to run: PHP artisan make job, and the process podcast. Now we will be naming it a bit differently here. So here I paste here. Now in our case, we want to name it process uploads or something like that. So I call it instead process podcast. I'm going to call it, we are dealing with the employee data, so let's call it employees. So employees. Alright, run the command. We have a job created. Now this job you can find inside in app directory. So here, if I scroll up in app directory, now you will see a folder named jobs, and there you will see the process employee. Open the file. I will see we have process employee, dispatchable, we have a constructor and a handle. Now here we can set the data. So if I go back to the controller, so here we are dealing with the data. So we can pass the data to our job, and there we can work. So for that, what we can simply do after this for each, because this array is going to be once first time it runs, it's going to pass 300 records. Second time it runs another 300 records, because we are looping through here each 300 records, if you remember. So here we can call this process process employees. All right, and here we can dispatch it. So it's going to be dispatched. So if I go back to the documentation, so here we have the dispatching job, you can see. Then here there in laravel documentation we are dispatching a job. So the same way we're going to dispatch in our code. So we have dispatch, and each time we are dealing with some data here, so we can pass this data into here. Alright, and as we are passing the employee data, we can get the data there. So if I go to ProcessEmployee, simply on top, I'm gonna create a variable. So it's gonna be public. I will call it $employee data, and here let's say $employee data, whatever we are receiving, we are going to set to this variable. So we say here $this employee data is equal to $employee data. Alright, now we can access it inside here, and then we can use that. So here simply I'm going to run try statement here as well. So then I'm gonna say we are calling it inside the okay, so we are calling it inside try statement already, so we don't need to do the try statement in here. It's already inside try statement. So I'm just going to remove this, and here what I'm going to do, we're going to for each, and I'm going to say $this employee data as $employee data, and here we can process. Now we need to save the data in the database. So if I go back to the browser, and there we have the, if I say here we have we don't have the table for employees. I haven't created it, so let's create that so that we can store the data. So for that we need to create a migration file. It's going to be PHP artisan make migration create employee table. Hit it. Now we should have this file. Let's go inside this file. So it's in laravel directory, database, migrations, and the latest one. So we have employees migration created. Now let's add the fields that we need in this. So basically what I want to store is the name. Nothing more for now. If you want to store something else, you can do that, but for now I'm gonna just pass name. Alright, so we save the name because we have a lot of data, so it's just gonna get the name and going to put the name for each employee. Then we have timestamp. Now we don't have the model for this employee table, so let's create that too. So go back here, PHP artisan make model employee. Now spelling should be correct. It's make model. Now if I go back to the employee, let's see where it is inside models directory. So models employee. Now here, I say first of all protected $table. So we are telling this is a table and it's employees, and also protected $guarded. It's going to be equals to empty array, so it won't create any issue when we insert data. So guarded is there, or you can define fillable, and then inside fillable you can define the fields you want to add data in mass assignment. So we have the model now. That's great, and now we can use the model to store the data. So we first need to run the migration, so let's do that. PHP artisan migrate. Alright, so we should have the database now, table. Now employees with the name and timestamp. Perfect. Now let's go back here Now close this, and here inside this loop, what we need to do, we need to call the new employee. So this is the model we are calling, and here is a $employee. All right, and in employee we just want to set the name. So it's gonna be name, and then we can put the name here. As we are getting the employee data here, now first we need to see what data we're getting. So we just gonna comment this in, and here in constructor, because we are receiving data here, we can dd this. So here I simply say dd, pass here, and if I get a controller, we are calling it right here. Here we can simply remove this dd. We don't need this one. And all right, let's see what happens. So if I go back to here, refresh, resend, we're getting this data. So 300 records, and each record has each individual employee. So if I go inside, if I go here, so when I do the for each loop, we get into this array, and then we can call these details straight away. So we are storing the name, and there is a lot of data we can store, but I'm just gonna save name for now. But what we can do here, we can join the first and last name, because we have here last name and also the first name. So let's join and insert that. So what I do here, $employee data, and here we need to pass first name. We can get it from here. Simply just gonna copy from here. So it was capital F, and then I need a bit spacing in between. And here I'm just gonna copy this, and here we're gonna say last name. So if we see here, last name is exactly like that. Yeah, so it should work just fine. All right, so here once this is done, we want to say $employee, save. So this is gonna save it. All right, now we don't have employee class imported, so let's do that. So on top, use app models, and then employee. All right, so it should do the trick. We have our process completed. We need to remove comment this one out, and it should save the data. So let's see if it is working for us. And yeah, all looks fine. Let's see what happens. So if I go back here, and let's do it from start, I refresh, and we have 1000 CSV selected. I say submit. Now it goes to white screen. Now I go to Laravel app, and here we have jobs. We have 4 jobs created. Employees, it's not going to be, because we are not processing the jobs right now, but we have 4 jobs created, and these jobs created because of this. So it added these, dispatched these jobs, and added in this jobs table. Now to run these jobs, all we need to do, we need to go into the code terminal, and we need to run a command. So for that, I go and open the text website, and in Laravel website there is this command, php-q worker, or work, to run the workers, and this is going to run those jobs. So I'm just going to copy this command, go back to the text editor, and okay, now we go back to terminal, and I paste this command and run this command. Now this is processing process. So it processed the commands. If I go back to application, these jobs should be gone from here, because these jobs just processed here. So what we'd say here, if I refresh the page, you can see it's gone. So if I go to failed jobs, we have successful jobs. That's the reason we have no data in failed jobs table. Now if I go to employees table, we should have data. So you can see that we have the 1,000 records added straight away with the timing, and we had 4 jobs defined, and those jobs completed. That's the reason those jobs does not have here anymore. So let me show you one more time what we do. So I go back here this time. Let's deal with some more data. And for the notification here, what is happening after this? I say echo job. Let's say jobs added, because it's giving us a white screen. That doesn't make sense. So let's do this. Okay. So I refresh here. I go and select this time. So we can select up to 5 million, but that is going to take time. So I'm going to select 10K for this time. And 10K users, employee data, submit, job added. Now we go here, we go to laravel app, jobs. We have more jobs this time because 10K are divided by 300. So we have more jobs. Now, if I go to here in terminal, you can see that as I ran the command already, so it's processing those commands already. And if I go to the laravel app, employees, you will see we have the 11,000 employee data. So it's already completed that. So if I go back here, you can always check that if your job's working fine by checking failed jobs table. If there is nothing, that's definitely good news. And your jobs table is now empty because all the jobs are done, and now we have the 11,000 employees stored. And